whatever you wind up doing is exactly what you should be doing.
And I have not behaved one single day of my life. Not one day of my life have I behaved, and I am fine.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're gonna hurt some people.
Whose car are we gonna take?
Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the Nikki Medoro Show on this October 2nd. It is officially Kim McAllister, my birthday month. And so...
Hey, happy birthday month. Yay!
Happy birthday month. My birthday's not till the end of the month, but because it is my birthday month, Scorpio season's almost here. Scorpio season is not here yet. I think it's the day before my birthday, the 25th. 24th or 25th is when Scorpio starts. But my husband and I are both Scorpios, but he's on the other end. But as an early birthday gift, we went to the Niner game yesterday. And it was amazing. Oh, I'm not wearing my Niner gear. It's because I wore it all yesterday. So I'd have to wash it. No, it was a great game. It was a great way to celebrate our birthdays. And we won. And Christian McCaffrey is just, oh my God, I love that guy. I swear to God, sitting in the stands at Levi Stadium and watching Christian McCaffrey is just amazing. I didn't want to show this picture, though, because we will be talking about it. I know the headline of the show on Facebook and everything was wrong in YouTube. I do know that it's Laphonza Butler who is going to be appointed to the late Dianne Feinstein Senate seat. But this is what was on the Jumbotron yesterday at the game. They took a moment of silence for Dianne Feinstein. Yeah. Although this guy behind me kept talking. I'm like, yo, dude, we're doing a moment of silence over here. Like, shush. But yeah, so we will be talking about the appointment. I had teased because I was in San Francisco on Friday when the news broke that the senator had passed away. And so of course, the first question, besides the fact, there was like kind of a theme, Kim, of the whole thing. It was not surprised, right? I mean, she's 90 years old.
Well,
so,
and we saw her whole old age play out. We knew she didn't look good, right?
Exactly. Like we knew this was coming.
It was not a surprise.
It was not a surprise, but at the same time, everyone was kind of like, oh my God, she's finally passed away, right? Not finally. I don't mean it like that, but she's passed away. Now the question is, how soon is respectable enough to talk about who are we going to put in that seat?
Well,
and I can't maintain it.
It couldn't be. It had to be a non-respectful time because our votes hang in the balance. It's a very slim majority. It's like the body is not. What do they say? The body's not even cold, and you're moving on.
The body's still warm. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they had to. Sorry, thank you for correcting my feeble analogy. But yes, they had to. Cliche. They had to. They had no choice but to move on quickly.
And it's not as if it's a city council seat, right? We're talking about one of two senators for the entire state of California. And arguably, and I don't mean any disrespect, but arguably we have not had two fully active, even though I know Dianne Feinstein, her last vote was the day before she died on keeping the government open. The woman worked her ass off. I'm not saying that, but let's be honest, okay? When you have someone kind of overseeing your estate, because, of your health issues and stuff like that, and you're a U.S. senator, there was huge questions. Are we properly being served, right? So now everyone's like, okay, now who are we going to put in the seat? And, so we'll talk about Governor Newsom choosing Laphonza Butler. She was a former aide to Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris. I think that there's something there, right? I feel like it's Newsom's way of getting Kamala Harris's name out there in a positive light. I don't know. Just the minute I saw the connection there, I was like, are we playing chess here with people? So you guys let me know in the comments what you think about that. I have a little piece from ABC7 kind of overlaying or explaining, who Butler is, all the glass ceilings that she breaks, because Dianne Feinstein, I mean, as we have, I think many of us that grew up in the Bay Area know her history, of course, but just all the glass ceilings that Dianne Feinstein broke through, similar. And this was the connection I was going to make with London Breed, did not start off as mayor, being voted in. Obviously, Dianne Feinstein, a tragedy led to her becoming mayor. But just all of the ways in which Dianne Feinstein worked for not just the city of San Francisco as mayor, with the Board of Supervisors, as a U.S. Senator. Why? There was a story that I was doing on Friday about the story behind why Dianne Feinstein ran for U.S. Senate was because in 1991, she was standing in an airport. Everyone was crowded around TVs, and they were watching the confirmation hearings for Clarence Thomas, and they were grilling Anita Hill, the Senate Judiciary Committee. And the story goes that she just sat there and watched this all-male Senate Judiciary Committee grill Anita Hill, and she didn't like it. She's like, it wasn't nice. I didn't like it, and I decided that I was going to run. And then, of course, 1992, the year of the woman. So many women appointed to U.S. Senate, and obviously, history continues. And so, anybody surprised at the speed? I'm seeing SF Tesla. Newsom wasted no time. Yeah, Laphonza Butler. It's not as if I know that of Emily's list, but she has like political background. She worked with the vice president, Kamala Harris. So yeah, we'll discuss that a little bit. We do, of course, have to follow the fact that the government is open. Fleet Week's happening. It's all been averted. In my opinion, you can thank the Democrats for being the adults in the room again. They worked with McCarthy. Now that's going to bite McCarthy in the ass, of course, and it is because Matt Gaetz is just committed to ousting him as speaker, which is, that's Matt Gaetz' thing. I don't know what's going to happen there, but you can thank the government continuing to run, people still getting their paychecks, the safety net, Fleet Week happening. You can thank the Democrats for that. Trump, his New York trial, he is so pissed off. Couldn't have happened to a worse person. But of course, he's calling it a sham. So we have some video of him having this impromptu press conference about all of that stuff. And then in the second part of the show, we are going to be speaking with Leah Carey. She is a sex and intimacy coach, Kim McAllister.
Oh.
She also has a podcast called Good Girls Talk About Sex. You can find it. You can find it at goodgirlstalk.com. And we're going to talk about all sorts of things. I want to touch on homecoming. I know that your daughter, Julia, Kim, already went to homecoming. My daughter's is in like 2 weeks. So kind of just the pressures of it all, within genders, on the boy, on the girl, when you're part of the LGBTQ community, how does that work out? Right. And then we'll have a little bit of fun. I don't think, Kim, you watch the nonsense shows I watch, but the Golden Bachelor started on Thursday.
I didn't watch it. I didn't. How'd it go?
I'm just going to say this. Within the first 5 minutes, I was crying because the guy, I'm telling you, his story is so sweet. But I will also add, and we'll talk to Leah Carey about this. When you talk about, a lot of people watched the Golden Bachelor's first episode, but are we going to be able to maintain the entertainment value of it? Do you think people become less snarky in their older years? Because that's what the whole thing is about The Bachelor, is you see people fight, whether with words or attitudes or whatever for somebody. And what's interesting about the Golden Bachelor, and we're going to be talking about the general thing. Don't worry if you're not a Bachelor fan, but he really wants to find love. I truly feel that Gary, the guy, the Golden Bachelor, he really wants to choose somebody that he is going to spend the rest of his life with. It's not like a 20-something person that's like, I want to be an influencer, right? Like this guy wants somebody to walk into the sunset with. That's what he wants. And so it brings this whole other sweetness to the show that I really, really like. So we'll touch on that. There's a bunch of different things in this kind of realm that we want to talk about. We'll talk about gender and sexual representation on TV. Leah has, like I mentioned, a podcast. And on her website, she talks about how, her issues and her stories, she's trying to find equity with it and how hard it is to kind of find the equity, not just in podcasts, but on TV and things like that. So all of those sorts of things are coming up on the Nikki Medoro Show today. But let's get some business out of the way before Kim's headlines. Click the thumbs up button. Show your support of the show. We really do appreciate it. The super chat is live. That is a way for you guys to give us a super thanks, a super comment. If you give a super comment, we'll read it live on the show. If you do it live, of course. The number one way, of course, to support the show and to keep this ball rolling is to become a monthly Patreon subscriber and become an official Medorable. I'm still waiting for my buttons. I designed a button. It's the first, I hope, of many iterations of buttons if I like this company. But it's an adorable button. So I'm really, really hoping it arrives and it turned out good. I've never designed a button before, so fingers crossed. But become a Medorable. Sign up on our Patreon. The link can be found at thenikkimedoroshow.com. And you can sign up to become a Medorable for any amount you can afford. I thank everybody that signs up. And some of you even bump up how much you can afford. It's one time a month. So whatever you want to give us once a month, we really do appreciate it. And then, of course, the raffle is coming up very, very quickly. We're already in October. Our anniversary is October 17th. If you want a chance to win a box of my favorite things, get your raffle tickets now. They're $20 a piece. You could buy them through PayPal. So just go to paypal.com, send money to the email, thenikkimedoroshow@gmail.com, thenikkimedoroshow@gmail.com. You could buy as many tickets as you want. And if you win and you're within 50 miles or so of San Jose, included in your prize is a personal delivery by yours truly. So
fancy.
No, that's fancy. Mm-hmm. So get your raffle tickets. It's a fundraiser. It's for our 1-year anniversary. You know, we'd love to continue doing the show. It takes money to put on the show. This is a 100% crowd-funded show, and we appreciate all of you that have bought raffle tickets. Now, when you buy your raffle tickets through PayPal, there's 2 things you need to remember. 1, put on there that it's for the raffle tickets, because some of you donate just regularly through PayPal for the show. So make sure you put it for the raffle and include your email so I can reach out to you if you're the winner. So thenikkimedoroshow@gmail.com through PayPal, include your email, and that it's for the raffle, and you will get a confirmation email from me. If anybody out there has purchased raffle tickets and not received a confirmation email from me, email me at the same email address, thenikkimedoroshow@gmail.com, and I will make sure that I have you on the list. Because sometimes, for those of you that don't include your email, I do it through PayPal's message system. So you have to check there too. So that's how it goes. And I love all of you. Okay, so we're going to talk about Newsom appointing Butler to Feinstein's seat. Do you like it? Do you think that it kind of clears up all of those issues of the caretaker of the Senate seat, as we are very close, of course, to the election? A bunch of stuff will be following Trump, but first we have to take a look at some news.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Well, good morning to you. The former president, Donald Trump, is now in a New York City courtroom for his civil fraud trial this morning. New York Attorney General Letitia James is accusing Trump and his family of inflating his net worth by saying his real estate portfolio was worth more than it was. Last week, the judge overseeing the case ruled that Trump had been overvaluing his properties and is liable for fraud. Now to figure out the damages in the case.
You know, this is a hard one for me to wrap my head around. So if anybody in the comments can explain it a little bit better. So this is how I understand it. So correct me if I'm wrong. So he was saying that his properties were worth a lot more money, so then he can get a lot more money, right? Like in loans and or write-offs or something like that. Correct? Is that the way I'm kind of thinking it? Because especially when you're talking about the value of property, it can be subjective unless you have an appraisal that kind of contradicts what you're saying it's worth, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm really interested in seeing how this plays out and how they prove it.
It also had to do with insurance, too, I believe.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because if it's worth a lot more money, then you can get a lot more money from insurance.
Yeah.
He's such a grifter. He is such a grifter.
It's all true. President Biden is glad that a government shutdown was averted, but he says it shouldn't have come down to the wire like that. Speaking from the White House Sunday, President Biden noted that he and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy had come to a budget agreement a few months ago. The president accused what he referred to as extreme MAGA Republicans of trying to walk away from that deal. New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez getting a pass on having to appear at a court hearing in New York City today. New Jersey's senior senator was supposed to appear in person to face federal bribery charges, he of the gold bars. But the judge overseeing the case had agreed to excuse the Democratic lawmaker so he could stay in Washington for Senate business. You got that very, very slim majority, and now it's very important to have everybody in their seat voting where they need to vote, right? Yeah, that's a rough one. He doesn't have to go. He can stay in the Senate seat. Student loan payments are back after an over 3-year pause brought on by the pandemic. The payments are officially back into effect as of yesterday. As many as 40 million Americans are now stuck paying those back loans.
Yeah, I was listening to one news report and somebody was and straight up said it. He's like, I am voting in the next presidential election on stuff like the student loan repayments, forgiving the debt, doing something about all of, income inequality is kind of along the same vein. Do you think that Republicans are going to make it easier for you to afford things? I mean, our government almost shut down. There was story after story about how that was going to affect things like childcare, right? The party, the Republicans, we care about the children. We care about the children. You're going to let WIC go under, right? You're going to let WIC that literally helps feed children. That wasn't worth it to you to keep the government open. They say these things. They say they care about certain issues, but then when it comes time to vote, they don't do squat or they have no alternative plan. Like if you think the Democratic plan, I'm talking to Republicans here, if you think the Democratic plan is wasteful spending, there is still the issue that Americans want addressed. So for instance, with the college debt, this is a real thing. This stops people from starting businesses, getting homes. We also know the predatory behavior of some of these loans. People didn't understand it. It wasn't even in the language that they spoke. We know all of these things. And so why the hell not address the issue? Or they're just like, screw it. You sign the paperwork and that's it. I understand that people took the loans out, but I also think that there is a solution somewhere if we could just take politics out of it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. The public is being invited to pay their respects to the late U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein this week. Her body will lie in state at San Francisco City Hall on Wednesday. The, of course, longtime California senator and San Francisco's first female mayor died last week at the age of 90 following a series of illnesses. Her funeral will take place Thursday at the San Francisco War Memorial and Performing Arts Center. So, yeah, her body will be lying in state. I guess people will be filing past it.
Yeah.
To say,
I mean, that's kind of the thing you do.
Yeah.
Have you ever done one of those? Like,
no.
I can't. Now, I'm not trying to be, disrespectful. I just can't imagine staying in line for hours on end just to walk by a casket.
Yeah.
That's just not something I can watch it on TV as other people waited in line for it. I understand, like, if I knew Dianne Feinstein, like, personally, if she was my friend, I could, I guess, understand. Yeah, they're anticipating, but there are people that just do this, right? I'm going to wait all day to walk by a casket. I'm like,
maybe because they want to be part of history or say they did something, or
they're already part of history. Like, I don't care. This sounds disrespectful now, but I'm just saying, just because I didn't walk past the casket doesn't mean I'm not part of this history. I witnessed it. I lived through it. I watched it on TV, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't understand that whole way, but it's a respectful thing that we do in this country. So if you're going to go, there you go.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, Laphonza Butler is being appointed interim U.S. Senator from the state of California. Governor Gavin Newsom replacing longtime Senator Dianne Feinstein. Butler is the first Black lesbian woman to serve in Congress. She's the first openly LGBTQ senator from California. She's the only Black woman in the Senate.
Only. That is crazy. So when you want to talk about race doesn't matter, I mean, come on. Like, does that not surprise anybody? It just,
the only Black woman in the whole Senate. Really?
In the whole Senate. Now, I can already hear people saying, well, there's not this race and there's not this. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, like, not everybody is probably represented, but it does seem quite surprising.
We've got a Latino dude and we've got a Black lesbian woman.
Yeah.
I don't
There
think
we
we
go.
could be. We're very well represented in California.
I would say so. I would say so.
In 2021, Butler became the president of Emily's List. That is a fundraising organization which works to elect Democratic women that are pro-choice, right? That will protect women's reproductive rights. She led the SEIU local in 2015, the largest labor union in California. Butler's also been a member of the UC Board of Regents and the director of public policy and campaigns in North America for Airbnb. She lives in Maryland and she's registered to vote in Maryland, but she also owns a home in California. So it's a quick presto changeo so that she can register to vote in California and officially be a California voter. And then it's all going to be okay. So she's going to do that. And then
And
she's
she's
going
not
to
going to be in the position for very long. So, I mean, it's not like we're talking years and years and years here. So,
Well, we don't know that because this appointment comes without any restrictions on it. It's not necessarily a caretaker position.
but she's not running.
We don't know. Governor
Oh, you think
Gavin
she's gonna
Newsom
throw her hat in?
He did not put restrictions on her to say that you can only have this job if you're not going to enter into the race. And
Can he do that?
Well, he was supposed to. He was supposed to appoint, what he said he would do is appoint a caretaker.
Right.
Right? That the reason he wasn't going to select a person from the battery of people already running is because he didn't want to unfairly
Of course.
mess with
Because
the
it's
race.
so close to the election. Yes.
Right. But she could throw her hat in the ring. He did
It's
not.
a little late for that, don't you think?
Not if she's the incumbent. Nope.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
She's a master fundraiser.
Yeah, and that's where she's good. I mean, not saying that she won't be good as senator. I'm not saying I don't know, but I would be
just saying.
surprised this late in the game that she's going to throw her hat in the race. I think that I could be totally wrong. Let me know in the comments. I totally view her as a caretaker. Whether Newsom says it, whether she says it, I totally see her appointment as a caretaker role because she's not Barbara Lee or anybody like that.
Then why didn't he say that when he announced and when he made comments about it? When he announced it, he didn't say that. Someone asked him that, and he said she's able to do whatever she wants to do, basically.
But I think that she always was able to. Okay, so let me just make this. You clarify this to me. If Newsom says she's a caretaker, does that mean she can't run? Of course not. She could run if she wanted to. It's just what he's saying, right? By law, he can't stop her from running.
If you come into the office with a promise and you say, I am here for X number of months, during which, there will be an election playing out behind me as I finish out Senator Feinstein's term, and I do not intend to run for this office again, that changes things. But when you say, I'm appointing this person, no strings attached, they can run if they want to, they can not if they don't. To me, that's different.
Yeah, but legally, I guess legally is what I'm saying. Like even if he said she's a caretaker, if she's in the position and then all of a sudden she's like, I like this job, she could always run. It's up to us, the voter, to vote on who's the next senator, whether she wants it or not.
Yeah, but
it's always up to us.
I don't think you do that if you make a deal with the governor not to do it.
But not by law. She could change her mind. It's not like, right?
There's nothing go against Governor Gavin Newsom, the guy who just put you in this position. I don't know.
Well, I mean, but I guess I'm just trying to clarify. She can, though. That's what, it might not look good. She might piss Newsom off,
right.
But she can. There's nothing stopping her from being the caretaker or continuing and running. I doubt it. I'm putting my money on she's just a caretaker. You might see it as, no, she might want to run. I just think it's way too late in the game to be throwing your hat into the Senate. I know she's a master fundraiser, but no, I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
She could probably whip up enough money to enter the race and do very well now that she's got the job. Yep.
I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
There we go.
This is interesting. Overnight, some doings at the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office. They say a man has been arrested after breaking into the Franchise Tax Board building. It happened last night. Police say he stole a truck from East Sacramento County, drove to the Franchise Tax Board building, and broke in by using a tire iron, which he then threatened security guards with. He was detained when he eventually ran from the building and was quickly apprehended by a canine officer. No motive for the break-in was given. His identity not released yet. We don't know what he was doing at the franchise tax board.
I mean, the only thing, like, are we trying to do identity theft? Like, why the hell would you break into that building? I mean, there's no money in there, right? It's like,
maybe he's looking for his records. Want to tamper with the records.
That's a weird thing to break into. Okay.
I got to rip up these taxes. I don't know.
Maybe he didn't know where he was. It's like, I'm just breaking into this building. Who knows?
This is an ominous story. Authorities speaking out about an alleged shark attack near Point Reyes. Ooh. The San Francisco based Coast Guard, believes a swimmer that went missing in the waters off Point Reyes National Seashore Sunday is believed to have been attacked by the shark, but they never found the person. Ooh. All right, they get a report, the shark has attacked somebody, and then they never find the body. So maybe the shark ate the person. Authorities haven't.
Yeah, right.
I mean, or maybe the person managed to swim to shore before they got there. I don't know. But authorities are not naming the swimmer. They said someone went missing in the water at about noon on Sunday. They have not been located. They hadn't by the end of the day, despite a very big search effort. State fish and wildlife officials say there have been 24 shark attacks off the coast of California since 2020. This one happened near Wildcat Beach. Off the coast of near Point Reyes, off the coast of Marin. So yeah, was there a shark attack? Was somebody seeing something? Do we know who we're even looking for? We don't know.
It's weird that we don't have a missing persons. Like, hey, Bob was supposed to be coming home and he was, swimming in the ocean that day. I know people. I don't know if you know anybody like this, Kim. Do you know anybody that will not swim in the ocean because of sharks?
Yes.
Like, I know people that will not go any deeper than their ankles into the ocean because they think a shark's 5 feet in.
Your chances of getting eaten by a shark or even nipped by a shark or if seeing a shark are really rare. It's very slim. Yeah.
But they will not. I mean, and they don't understand how people can go out as far as to their neck and just wade in the water. They're like, that is insane. And I go, I really don't
think they're out there just waiting for you.
Yes, they do. And I don't mean to laugh at people because then you have stories like you just said, right? Where they're like, see? They're like, well, but how many times, right? How many times does it happen? But they won't. Yeah. Dark water. They're like, if I can't see my feet in the water, I'm not going in.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
There you go.
Interesting. Yeah, people. The jackpot for the Powerball lottery drawing. Yeah, it's ready. Now it's time.
You keep saying that every single time we talk about it. It's ready to pop up.
Well, it did last time I said it after over $1 billion. Now it's over $1 billion again.
Oh, jeez. Can you imagine?
Can
you heard that Florida woman came forward for the last billion. I don't even know what I would do. That is so much money.
$1 billion.
That is so much more than $1 million. It is so much.
You're going to take the cash award. You're not getting $1 billion. However,
$500,000 or $500 million is still a lot of money.
Taking it all. And then there's some people who say, why would you want to win that much money? That just opens a can of worms. Who wants
I
that
want
billion?
The worms. Give me worms. I'll take all of the worms. Are you kidding me right now? Please, Lord, challenge me with this life lesson of having too much freaking money.
I'll take all the cash. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so much money. Yeah, exactly, Kevin. 1,000 million.
Wow.
It is so. And then if you're smart, right? And you can live off the interest. I mean, you can't spend all that money in a lifetime. I really don't think so. I mean, unless you're a complete, I don't.
So my husband
it's like Brewster's Millions.
Right.
Like, how do you even spend that?
My
much
husband
money?
thinks you have to. The minute you say who you are, people find out who you are. You have to move into some Atherton-related gated community because kidnappers are going to be coming. The people who will do you harm.
You can hide your identity through an LLC. There are ways of doing it.
That's right. Yeah.
You can hide behind that.
All the problems we'll never have, right?
There'll be signs, though, that I'm rich. You'll definitely be able to tell, though.
The backdrop will be a little nicer all of a sudden.
They're like, I don't know if she won $1 billion, but it sure as hell looks like it.
Nikki's not renting a house anymore. What's that
I'm
about?
not renting a house. My nails are done. I wonder how much do you think your personality would change if you became extremely rich overnight?
God, I hope not at all.
Me too. But like, you never know. I mean, I would hope I'd be so generous. So generous. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want, because you can't spend all the money. There's just no way you're going to be able to spend all the money. It would be gluttonous. It'd be so, ugh. It'd be gross. If you try to spend that much money, it would just be so disgusting looking. So you want to give stuff away. I'd want to like create a charity. Maybe I'd put my name on a building. Who knows? You know, like, I don't know, like a women's clinic, right? A free women's clinic, like in every freaking red state where women don't have anything. Something, you know what I mean? Like giving back and having a legacy beyond, oh, she won the lottery, right? That's what I would want.
First stop is the PTAs at every school my kids have ever attended.
There you go. That's a good one.
Anonymous donation. Wonder how that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Give
that
every
PTA
teacher
would be funded for decades, right?
Yes. It's just something.
And then all the people that have ever been kind or nice to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a long list. But you'd have so much money. I mean, again, if you, like we just said, 1,000 million. If you know it, I don't even think I know 1,000 people, right? Like personally. If you can give each of them $1 million and you haven't made a dent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's just, well, I mean, you obviously.
Of course, everyone comes out of the woodwork because everyone wants their million from you, and by the end, you would, if you can't do it to everyone, or you have, you
have no money left. But I'm just saying, like, you could give away so much money and still be rich.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be fun just to be able to do this. And get up and do this because then we never have to say, here's our Patreon link. Nope.
It's 100% me funded.
The Patreon link is closed. It's us funded. That's
We're
right.
all adorables. There you go. Exactly.
Well, we can dream. Only 3 other Powerball jackpots have been higher than the current estimated 1.04 billion during dollar pre-tax payout. The next drawing is tonight, with a cash option at just over 478 mil.
Oh, God.
All right.
I wish. Daydream. You have to buy a ticket to Daydream, by the way.
So the cash option is 478 million. Then you have to pay taxes on that.
I'll take 200. I will take $200 million.
I'm just saying, it looks like you won 1.04 billion, but in essence, no. Less than half.
I'm not going to be disappointed. There will not be a sad face over here.
I think that's highway robbery. Happy. I think if they say that you get $1 billion, they should hand you $1 billion and say, "Good luck, Kim. Go get it, girl."
Well, they can. Well, there will never be $1 billion, right? Because there has to be some taken out for taxes. And then, of course, you could do the installments, but then, of course, then you risk not living long enough to spend it all, which you won't. So.
Kim says you'd be paying people to tune in. Yeah, you know what? We'd probably have daily cash giveaway. That's right. Yeah. Everyone would be tuning in. We'd be like, yes, today's amount is, how much are we giving away, Nikki?
Yes, like a wheel with all kinds of numbers that'd be between like $5 and $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like
Good stuff.
There you go. Nick's like, I'll take $1 million. I'll take $1 million. You know what? I'll take $25,000. I'm stoked when I win $5. So, I'm not picky, but I'd love to be the winner. I mean, I don't even know what that feels like. That just must be insane.
There's a lot of new football fans. It's fun. And by the way, with the whole lottery thing, we have however many more hours to dream before,
exactly. And it's so fun to dream.
Yeah.
It's like what, $2 for a ticket, something like that. So
yeah, $2 a ticket.
$2, and you could dream all day long.
Maud is kicking in. I see her with our lottery funding. We don't have billions here, but some change. I adore you. Thank you, Maud.
Thank you, Maud, for donating
awesome.
to it. Harry also donated, by the way. Love buttons. Can you push more of Trump's buttons? Yes, I will always push Trump's buttons. Looking forward to your button. Thank you, Harry. Thank you. Hope you're working from home today.
Thanks, Harry. Thanks, Maud.
Yes.
Last story I have for you guys during this particular newscast has to do with Taylor Swift.
She was at the football game again last night.
Yeah, showed up in the New Jersey Sunday with quite the entourage to watch Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Jets. Taylor Swift spotted at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford cheering for the Chiefs tight end with Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, and Sophie Turner by her side. Last week, the Shake It Off singer was with Travis Kelce's mom cheering on her rumored new beau as well. I don't know if it's kind of quick, like, I want to date you, and then all of a sudden all this seems to be a publicity thing.
Yeah, me. I don't know. And then who she invited? Now I know Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are married.
Yeah.
Sophie Turner, she's the one. Sophie Turner's the Joe Jonas, right?
Yeah,
from Game of Thrones,
right.
And Hugh Jackman. Both just got separated and are getting divorced. That's quite interesting. Is she trying to play matchmaker or something? I mean, he's a little older than Sophie Turner is, but just saying. And what I love, Kim, is how they're acting like there's no Swifties that understand football. So there's all these memes explaining like what downs are and all sorts of things. I'm a Swiftie, and football is pretty much the only sport I understand. So
I read that the NFL is hiring Carson Daly to explain football to Swifties. Is that true?
No, but I don't know if that's true. It might be true. I wouldn't put it past it. But yeah, they're acting like, well, again, because I like football, so I understand.
Hey, little
football.
lady, let me explain how it all works.
Exactly. I do love knowing football, though. Like I'll just not just football, but I like knowing the rules of a sport. I don't understand hockey that well. Soccer is not too hard, although the whole offsides thing is kind of confusing. But yeah, I understand football. When I was at the game, like watching the game and knowing what's going on the field matters, in my opinion. Otherwise, you're just cheering when everyone else cheers, and you don't even understand why you're cheering. So, unless it's a touchdown, which is obvious. But yeah. Swifties are in football.
Yeah, a little football, little Taylor Swift with your football.
I mean, exactly. We'll see if they last. We'll see.
Did you see that Travis Kelce's mom was sitting next to the Jake from State Farm?
I saw that picture.
So here's the question I have. Have you turned your mother into a billboard? Basically, she's a giant walking human being advertisement opportunity.
Okay.
Right? So the minute that Taylor Swift sat with the mom, all of a sudden, he's selling out of his jerseys, right?
Right. Yes.
And more people are watching the game than ever. And there's this huge financial opportunity. So State Farm looks at it and they're like, well, can she sit next to Jake from State Farm then? Because we'll take some of that money.
Right.
So then how much did they pay to put Jake from State Farm next to her? And then is that what you want from your mom? Do you want your mom to be a photo op, an advertising?
I think they're probably just having fun with it.
It's
not going to last forever.
Oh,
I think she's having fun.
She's product placement now.
Well, she makes money then.
Who's the mom sitting next to today?
Yeah. I mean, as long as she's okay with it and she's not being exploited in a way in which she's not aware of, I'd say it's fine. I mean,
look, now she's sitting next to a giant Coke bottle.
You know what? I mean, I'm standing next to Matthew McConaughey right here. And I don't mind that.
Right, but you're not getting paid for that.
Yeah, but look, Kathleen, mom's making some easy money. I mean, what's the harm? What's the harm? If she's doing it on her own accord and not being manipulated like, oh, here's my seat and now there's somebody sitting next to me and now I'm a billboard. She's well aware of it. And she has 2 sons in the NFL. She has been on, she understands the spotlight very, very well, I'm sure. So I don't think I'm going to play a tiny violin for the Kelce mom at all. No. I don't think so.
Oh, this report is crowdfunded, which means until we win the lottery, we got to rely on you. So that means you can find us at thenikkimedoroshow.com, thenikkimedoroshow.com, and the Patreon link is there. PayPal email address is thenikkimedoroshow@gmail.com. And of course, we're doing the big raffle, which means that you have the opportunity to win the Nikki Medoro box full of good stuff. So you go to paypal.com, and then when they say, who you paying? You say the Nikki Medoro Show at gmail.com, of course. And then you enter in that this is for the raffle. And then Nikki will send you a confirmation on that. But that's how that all works. Exactly. I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Nikki Medoro Show.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, and don't forget to put your email. It's okay if you forget and you've already sent it. I'll just message you through PayPal. But I like having the emails because I'm making a list. I'm checking it twice. And so we're going to do the raffle on October 17th. I can't believe it's coming up so quickly. And we've been doing this for a year. But I love it. And I want to keep going. Sherry says Matthew's going to be on Kimmel tonight. He has been making the rounds, my friends. I don't ever stay up and I have to work in San Francisco. I'm working in San Francisco the next 3 days, just a warning. So there's no way I'm staying up and watching Jimmy Kimmel. I'll catch the replay, though. You know what I love about the fans of this show and basically anybody that knows me? Anytime Matthew is on anything, I get sent a link to it. Like, your guy's on this, your guy's on that.
That's how you found him. That's how you met him. So
exactly.
Right?
People know what I like and they let me know about it. So thank you them. I adore him. So anything that he's on and you guys send to me, I will love. Okay, so God, I feel like that we talked about so much regarding Butler being appointed to Dianne Feinstein's seat. I did want to just touch a little bit more. Oh, did I lose it? Oh, no, here we go. A little bit more on who she is. And you guys let me know in the comments, because Kim seems to be under the impression that she might run. I don't think so. But here's a little bit of a snippet about her from ABC7.
Butler is a Democratic strategist and advisor to Vice President Kamala Harris.
What he did is he picked somebody outside of government who cares about issues that he cares about.
Butler will be the only Black woman serving in the U.S. Senate and the first openly LGBTQ person to represent California in the chamber. Newsom fulfilling his pledge to appoint a Black woman if the seat became available, saying, quote, Laphonza will carry the baton left by Senator Feinstein, continue to break glass ceilings, and fight for all Californians in Washington. Butler commenting on Feinstein's passing over the weekend, saying, not only was she a titan in the Senate, but a legendary figure for women in politics and around the country. Her legacy and achievements will not be forgotten. With Butler's selection to the Senate, she will step down from her role as president of Emily's List, a political organization that supports Democratic women candidates who favor abortion rights.
He picked somebody who's the leader of Emily's List, who's going to be at the forefront of talking about issues involving gender equality and reproductive choice.
She is also a former labor leader with SEIU 2015, a powerful force in California politics. ABC7 interviewed Butler in 2015 while fighting for higher wages for in-home healthcare workers.
This group of workers is fundamental to the backbone of our communities. They take care of the elderly, they take care of the disabled. They make sure that all of those other workers can actually go to work and not be confined to making sure that our state's most vulnerable are taken care of.
Butler could be sworn in as early as Tuesday evening when the Senate returns to session. Sophie Flay.
So I don't know, man. I don't think she's gonna. I don't think she's gonna run. Although I like the clip that they just showed there. I like the fact that she has, like Kim was mentioning, fundraising experience, but also political. I mean, fighting for union workers, those sorts of things, fighting for women's reproductive rights. I feel like she's going to be a very strong voice in the Senate. So now, like, hearing that, do you think that she's going to try to keep the seat? This is why I don't think so. I think people know where they're most effective, right? And if she has this resume of being a good kind of whip, right? Not that she is a whip, but like, you know, whips up those dollars and that support for issues that are important to the Democratic Party. Why take her from that? You know, that's one of the arguments that some people say about Katie Porter, and why they don't want Katie Porter in the U.S. Senate is because she is so effective as a congresswoman. And it's like, come on. I think Katie Porter would be amazing. You all know I've been very forthcoming. I like Katie Porter for U.S. Senate. I do agree that she's very effective as a congresswoman, especially down in the red area in which she represents. But you can make such an impact as a U.S. senator. There's only 2 per state. It's a very exclusive club. And so, yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to watch. I like the appointment. Like Kim mentioned in her news, you know, Dianne Feinstein, she's going to be in state for people
lying
to
in
walk
state.
by, lying in state, so people can walk by her casket this week. And then it's going to be full steam ahead until the next election for the Senate seat. Okay, do you want to bet that Butler's gonna run or not? You want to make a friendly wager, just no money, just a friendly wager? I say no. You say yes?
I say yes, she will.
You think so?
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Who agrees with Kim? Who agrees with me? Because I really just don't see it happening.
What's interesting is that he just said he would. Didn't he just say, I will appoint someone in a caretaker role?
Yes. But don't you think that he didn't have to reiterate it again? I mean,
Newsom spokesman Anthony York telling the Chronicle Sunday, Newsom's job is to appoint someone now that there is a vacancy. Whether that person decides to run will be entirely up to her.
Yes, exactly. Do you think that Butler wants that seat permanently?
If that was the case, then why wouldn't you just have appointed Barbara Lee and been done with it?
Because then you would put your thumb on it for the upcoming election. Barbara Lee is running for that seat.
Well,
That's
so
why.
what if now Senator Butler runs?
I don't think so. I don't think she is. I think she's a caretaker. But here's the thing. You don't want to be like, this person's just a caretaker after you've appointed them. You want to make it, this is a strong woman who's going to, hold up California ideals and is going to fight for the state of California. You're not going to be like, yeah, she's just a placeholder. No, you're going to build her up because, it's historic. You don't want to kind of mute the historic nature of this appointment because there's so many glass ceilings that are being broken. So he doesn't want to lead with the caretaker, but I think, is not going to run. Not that she's a caretaker and is not going to be effective, but she's not going to run for the seat permanently. I just don't think so.
I don't know.
Now. We'll see.
I would have liked to have seen more of a definitive, maybe we'll see that in a couple days where she'll,
I don't think that's an insult to be like, yeah, just admit you're a caretaker. I mean, it's kind of
what's
a
wrong
crappy
with that?
way.
It would actually be more palatable to have somebody registered to vote in Maryland representing me in the Senate if I knew it was only for a matter of months.
Yeah, see, people are okay, Walnut Creek, you're saying maybe the agreement of taking the appointment was not to run for the seat. You can agree till you're blue in the face.
Yeah.
But nothing's stopping her from doing that. There's nothing in the law that says, I, governor, am appointing you, and you have to sign this contract that says you will not run. No, she could run whether she wants to or not. Always could have. He is saying, I want a caretaker, not someone that's running for the office. That's what he was saying. So that's my point, is whether she's the caretaker or not the caretaker, it's always up to her. It's always up to her on whether or not she wants to run. I personally don't think she will.
I think it's hard to get in there and realize how much you can affect change. And maybe she gets in there and
maybe she likes the seat.
She likes it. She likes it, and she's done things like this. Like I heard in the report they said she's someone outside of government. Not true. She's an advisor to Kamala Harris. There are pictures of her standing behind Senator Alex Padilla in state government. I also read that she has ties to Governor Gavin Newsom as well. She's been fundraising for people that are running, that are on behalf of women, women's reproductive rights, right? So she's had her fingers in politics for quite a while. I don't think you can say she's someone outside of government just because she technically hasn't, run for office and held a seat before.
But don't you think there's a timeline in which you need to announce that you are going to run to keep that seat? I mean, don't you think that the window is really kind of closed for that?
Well, why? I mean,
because
we have how long do we have before the election? It's what, more than a year.
There's 3 people that are already out there that have the name recognition.
But what have they done?
Are running.
They've collected money. Well, guess who's really good at collecting money? Laphonza Butler.
Would you vote for her? If she was running, would you vote for her?
I don't know anything about her.
That's why I'm saying she shouldn't run.
But I mean, I technically think that she could show me a hell of a lot in a very short period of time. Her name's going to be in the news all over the place. She's going to be, we'll figure out who she is. We know she's pro-choice. We know she's fights for women's reproductive rights. I'm liking that already.
She's not going to be on the Senate Judiciary Committee, though. They're not putting her on the committee. She's not going to take a Feinstein seat, I don't believe.
Well, no, because Republicans have said no.
Yeah.
They're not going to let her have those. That's
John asked an interesting question, though. If she runs, will she split the Barbara Lee vote?
Well, there are some people saying that know both of them, that are saying they hope that she turns around and campaigns for Barbara Lee. And if she's truly a caretaker, she can't be campaigning for Barbara Lee, right? She has to kind of stay hands off out of the election unless she decides to run.
I just don't think it's going to happen. Well, we'll see. I mean, I obviously very quickly we're going to see whether or not she can't wait too long. That's what I'm saying. You're saying, oh, it's more than a year away. These campaigns have been in the works for a long time, and she knows that. So if you're going to get into it, if you're going to put your hat in the race, there should have been an announcement when they announced it. And maybe that's what you're talking about. Maybe that's Newsom kind of leaving that door open. Like, if you want to, I don't know, man. I just don't see it. All right. Okay. Well, let's.
You know what's interesting is in her statement,
Mhm.
she says, "I am honored to accept Governor Newsom's nomination to be the U.S. Senator for a state I have long called home." How she has to say that in the opening
She doesn't
sentence.
live there. Yes, because she doesn't live there.
For women and for girls, for workers, for unions, for struggling parents waiting for our leaders to bring opportunity back to their homes, for all of California, she says, "I am ready to serve."
All right. Well, I'm glad that she's ready to serve.
Yeah. I'm glad we have a black woman in the Senate.
About time, right? It's about time.
Well, Kamala Harris was the last one.
Yeah. And she's also Indian. So, I mean, it was kind of half and half.
Yeah.
Not that diminishes anything. I'm not saying that. But yeah, I think that, if you're going to replace somebody as powerful as the senior senator from California, it might not be an easy seat to give up. Might not be power that she wants to give up. But again, I'm still maintaining my vote. Okay, we have a few more minutes in this part of the show. I want your reaction to something because I think that we disagree on this.
Oh,
I think I remember you disagreeing with me on this. California Governor Gavin Newsom has rejected a bill to give unemployment checks to striking workers. What do you think about that decision?
I was disappointed by it.
I knew it. And I still think that was the best call, in all honesty.
See, but when I read more about it, then I was on board with his decision. So I thought this would have been great for workers that are striking, that are trying to make a point. They wouldn't have to struggle in order to do that. But when Governor Newsom talked about all the fraud, which whose fault is that? When he talked about all the money, I guess we're in debt when you look at unemployment insurance. It's not solvent.
Nope.
I forget what the number is. It's something like $20 gazillion in the hole. That's my official news person's term for that. But I feel like we can't afford it. If we could afford it, I would say great. But apparently we can't afford that. So
the fund is $18 billion in debt.
I read 20 billion.
It would be by the end of the year if it was used to pay unemployment benefits to striking workers. But that's not why I'm against it. And this is what I think we're going to disagree on. I just think that the reason you strike is to express that you're willing to take the pain of no income to prove a point. Now, this was an interesting quote that I saw. Regarding this. Okay, so the bill's author, Democratic Senator Anthony Portantino, said labor unions had argued that the amount of workers on strike for more than 2 weeks, that's when the unemployment benefits would kick in, is so small, it would not have a significant impact on the state's unemployment trust fund. He said of the 56 strikes in California over the past decade, only 2 lasted longer than 2 weeks. And guess why? Because there's pain involved, because you're not getting paid. And so they're feeling the pain. The employer's feeling the pain. There's pain being felt all around. Now, I am not saying that the unemployment that somebody gets while they're striking is anywhere close to making them whole. It's not. It's like $450 a week, right?
Right.
But it's something. And I feel like the number of people that would strike, that are able to strike, could, I'm not making a guarantee, could go up where, yes, you're going to deplete this fund very quickly. And so that's what I'm saying. I'm like, the point of a strike is like, we're here. And like, for instance, my husband's union, there's a fund that they specifically fund themselves to help people out, like the SAG-AFTRA did during the writers and actors strike. Like, hey, it's not going to make you whole, but here's a little money. It's not coming from the unemployment fund, though. It's coming from, the members supporting each other. I like that idea better. Because God, can you imagine every single time somebody wants to strike, the state's unemployment fund takes a hit? That's dangerous. No, so I agree that he shouldn't have signed it.
I like the idea of that. I like the idea of, you're not going to be getting what you normally get, but you're going to get something. You'll be able to maybe pay your mortgage, right? Or pay your rent for the month.
But okay, yeah. $450 a week.
Something. It's something. I'm going to be able to put food on the table.
That's true.
But I don't know. When you talk about the state being able to afford it and, workers that were laid off and the unemployment system being in trouble, then I understand. If we can't afford it, we just can't afford it.
No, we can't afford it. And again, but that's, for me, that's not the reason I think that he shouldn't have signed it. I think that strikes should, I am totally a union supporter.
I don't want people to feel pain. I don't want them to feel pain. I don't want them to. I want them to be able to hold out as long as they can to make their point.
Okay. Do you think, and I hate saying this as a union member, I'm a total union member. I was raised by union parents. I do believe that it could be exploited in ways simply because the pain isn't there as much anymore. Okay. I'm not saying, look, I think in this, with the income inequality we see in this country, how much CEOs make versus, the average employer. I think that every company probably has a right to strike, right? For better wages and better healthcare. Like it's not a stretch to think that people can strike for a better deal.
Yeah.
I just think there needs to be more skin in the game. That's all I'm saying. And I want people to negotiate in good faith. I want people to understand, both sides. I think that, not every company is like a Walmart or, something exploiting their workers and taking up so much money for their CEOs and giving nothing to the average worker. But I just think that there needs to be a balance, and striking is voluntary. Somebody said it in the comments before. Striking is voluntary. And if you give people money, they strike. I just think it loses a little bit of its a little bit of its point. It's like we are willing to take a hit simply because we believe in what we're striking for.
And I see that, but I just don't want workers to be the one. They're not the one making the millions. I don't want workers to be the ones to suffer. And they
I don't either. They
shouldn't have to when they're being treated unfairly. That's my point.
Yeah. Lori's the one that said it. Union dues are supposed to contribute to strike funds. Unemployment has a specific mandate. Striking is voluntary. Yeah. It's just, it's different. It's the purpose of a fund, right? The purpose of the fund, unemployment, is for people that got laid off, those sorts of things. If you voluntarily strike or quit, you don't get unemployment. That's just kind of the rules of the road. So, Governor Newsom, he did not sign that. I wondered how, the reaction it was going to be, especially for a lot of progressives out there. But I thought it was really interesting. The next session of the U.S. Supreme Court, starts today, I think it's today.
Was it?
It's this week. Not a lot of big like Roe v. Wade type of issues, but a lot of things are going to be legislated through it, unfortunately, because Congress can't figure it out, and we let everything go to the U.S. Supreme Court nowadays. But one of the things
starts tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow. No, that was last year. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's today or this week. But one of the things that they are going to be bringing up, and it's not necessarily a case that they're going to be discussing, is ethics code for the Supreme Court. The highest court in the land has literally no oversight over it. So I'll be watching. Apparently there's a list of things they can kind of agree to. So we shall see.
You think they should
if
be
the
able
justices
to
do the right thing?
Should they be able to set rules for themselves?
I think that there needs to be a code of conduct. I think that what I definitely think that there should be for the U.S. Supreme Court? There should be rules on pulling yourself off hearing cases. Absolutely. I think that most of the justices have some problematic things, specifically, of course, Clarence Thomas. You're
right. They begin oral arguments this morning. I thought it was today. So we'll be of course keeping our eyes on what comes out of the U.S. Supreme Court. Everything from guns to, challenging the reproductive laws that have come since the overturning of Roe v. Wade are going to be before the court. So that's going to be something very, very close to watch. Okay. Mimi. Thank you, Mimi, so much for the $20 donation. You are awesome. Okay. It was only 15 minutes ago we finished the news, so I think we'll save it in a little bit. We'll do some headlines in a little bit because we do have a guest joining us on the Nikki Medoro Show, and we're going to switch gears. Now, you guys know I love to talk about all things relationships, sex. I like to keep things sexy on the show. And you guys know that I absolutely love my Bachelor. Okay. Now, I don't know how many of you watch. Now, Kim, do you watch The Bachelor at all? My mom likes it. So it's not that I haven't seen it, but I don't seek it out.
You don't seek it out.
No.
So it's not like you have it recording like I do
on
my Hulu Plus Live TV.
The idea of, and I know it's opposite. Sometimes it's men, sometimes it's women
Yeah,
throwing
it's
themselves.
okay, so the
The
hierarchy
idea-
is Bachelor is the best, then Bachelor in Paradise, and then Bachelorette down here. I do not care for Bachelorette. I find it extremely boring, but that's my hierarchy.
The
right
idea of throngs of women vying for one man's attention, pick me, pick me.
I know, it's so
is
gross, right?
Not palatable to me. Like I can't. No.
All right. Well, joining us on this show is a podcaster. She has her own podcast. It's called Good Girls Talk About Sex. She's a sex and intimacy coach as well. Welcome to the Nikki Medoro Show, Leah Carey. Leah, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Well, I'm glad that we can get you on the show. I love talking about stuff like this. Now, I always have people in my comments that are like, ugh, Nikki, how can you watch crap TV shows like The Bachelor, right? And I make no apologies, Leah. I just say, because I like to watch crap TV, I follow the news very closely, and it is my, is my outlet, and I love to watch it. But it can, like Kim was teasing right there, it can be a bit problematic. So,
oh yeah.
Absolutely. Watching these women vying for men. Oh, and they do vice versa. Men vying for women, although whatever. I find that show boring. I find Bachelorette boring. I do like The Bachelor. Now, everybody that knows, The Golden Bachelor started last week. Thursday was the first day. Are you a Bachelor watcher, Leah?
I watched the first episode of the first season, and I don't think I've missed an episode since.
See, you're my kind of woman. So I thank my good friend, our old colleague, Karen Reed, who used to work with us at our old radio station. She turned it on to me. And I always used to say, it's a crap show. I don't know why you watch that crap show. And she got me into it years ago. And now I can't stop watching it. Now, Golden Bachelor, though, was this new iteration that they had actually been teasing before COVID.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened, and I think they kind of put it on hiatus for a while. Yeah. So it just started on Thursday. Did you watch the first episode?
I absolutely did. And I think it's fascinating because there's so many problems with the Bachelor franchise. Like, let me not pretend that I think it's good television. It's not. It's terrible. I particularly enjoy it because I love watching the very human dynamics that happen. Unscripted television, while it is heavily produced and heavily manipulated, we're still watching real people going through real-ish emotions. And so we get to see how people actually interact. And that's the part of it that I get fascinated by. But one of the many problems is that we see a very certain look. They only cast people who look a particular way. They only cast people with a very particular body. They cast people, it's just like a very particular model gets cast, and that's all we see. And so it's really fun to see a whole cast of people who are over 60.
Yes.
Over 60, I think. Yeah. And I think it's so interesting because they have been sort of promoting this idea for several years. And I think you're right. I think it got pushed off because of COVID, because clearly they had a franchise structure that worked, that they could adjust for the regular Bachelor, but that could not have worked for a brand new show. So it was a really good thing that they pushed it off. Also, people in that age category were among the most susceptible
to COVID and everything.
To COVID. But also, I keep getting confused. Is his name Gary or Jerry?
Yes, it's Gary. It's what it doesn't look like. That's
what Gary, but it looks like Jerry.
It looks like Jerry. Yeah, and he's a really nice. I don't know about you. I was teasing this. I was in tears 5 minutes into the episode when they were doing his life story. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! His wife died within a month of retiring. And I just was so sad for the guy. So I could tell Leah that unlike past bachelors, he really wants to find somebody.
Yeah.
This is going to be a real relationship, I feel like.
I think so too. And not only does he really want to find somebody, he has enough life experience to know what actually works for him and what doesn't. And it's not like he's going to be chasing after the shiny object because, she's the prettiest, hottest, whatever. I mean, they're all beautiful.
They're all really, they look great for their age. I am going to say that.
Yes,
I mean,
they are still casting, conventionally attractive women. Let's not get that
although
twisted.
Jimmy Kimmel's mom apparently made like a cameo in this
His
episode.
aunt should be. Yeah. that
she
was
came
odd.
out the only woman that did not look like the rest of them, and we're like, oh, how different. And then we found out it was Jimmy Kimmel's aunt. So no.
But he's not going to be sort of like taken in by the bright shiny object. He's actually looking for a mate, and I love that for him. I love that for all of them.
Right. So now I want to kind of talk about, we could just talk about The Bachelor and the episode and everything like that, but what this kind of relates to the rest of society as we watch something. So people often say, the things that we like, they're a mirror, right? Like what we watch on TV, we kind of see happening in our real life. But when it comes to these sorts of relationships and kind of the going after somebody and having all of these options, I constantly think of something like dating apps, right? It's I'm dating all of these women. You're not actually in a relationship with all of these women. You're on TV with all of these women. Apps like Tinder, I feel like it's a Cheesecake Factory menu. You keep looking and looking and looking, and that looks good and that looks good. How do you ever make a choice? And is it healthy for relationships to be portrayed this way?
Gosh, that's a big question.
Yeah.
And a good one. I mean, are most of us ever going to be in a position where we are literally faced with a room of 25 people, any of whom we could go out on a date with? No.
Like that really want to date us and only us. Like, I came here for you. I'm like, okay, that's great. That's a lot of pressure though.
Yeah. But you're right. It does sort of have that feeling of the app where, well, I didn't like that, that one looked at me crosswise and that one snores and that one, whatever. And so you can just swipe on to the next one. I think there is some challenge in presenting dating as that type of sort of disposable experience.
Yes.
With that said, dating is a numbers game. Like, as unfortunate as that is, you have to meet a lot of people. Most people have to meet a lot of people before they find the one who they really, really match with. And so to that extent, yeah, that is kind of, most of us would do that over the course of, a year or 2 or 3 rather than 6 weeks. But, there's some reality to that.
Yeah. JR, one of our viewers says, my wife watches. The biggest problem I have is that the culmination of the show is a marriage proposal and ensuing engagement. An all expense paid resort excursion is not real life. Weigh in on this, because I will agree with JR on one instance. On the other, they have no phones. They have no distractions. If there was ever an opportunity to get to know somebody, do you think that could really happen in this kind of atmosphere, like reality TV with cameras and things like that?
It's so hard because you're right. They don't have phones. They don't have any distractions. So there's nothing that is keeping them from really getting to know this other person. However, they also don't have their support system. So they are completely cut off from the rest of the world. So they have no other voices coming to say, is this really the person who you want to be with for the rest of your life? Or are you getting kind of caught up in the excitement of the show?
And the competition. Like, I feel like some people just want to win, right?
Yes, exactly. And they even talk about it in those terms. There are lots of people who talk about winning. And then there's all the producer manipulation, because we know, like, there's plenty of material out there to tell us now how much producer manipulation happens. So,
Yeah.
I don't know also what, I don't know if you can really kind of hone in on what motivates someone to be on the show.
Yeah.
Do they just want to be on the show to get publicity? Do they just want to be on the show
to be an influencer?
Do they trying to make a name for themselves? Are they trying to, and so you can never really truly know in that amount of time what the motivations of that other person are.
Yeah, I think that, well, okay, so we have to put the Golden Bachelor in a slightly different category, I think, because most of those people are probably not on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah.
Oh no, when he came out, he's like, this is the latest I've been up. And I'm like, it's so late, probably. I'm like, usually somebody was in a tracksuit. Was that Jimmy Kimmel's aunt? Like,
no, it was another woman.
dress at the end. She's like, I'm in my pajamas now.
I'm
It
out.
was so funny. But yeah, Golden Bachelor to the side. I think there has to be different motivations for people.
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of those people are there genuinely for love. And probably a lot of them have been watching the show for a long time with their kids, their grandkids, obviously that woman with her best friend.
Yes.
Like, these are people who are invested in the show, I think, probably for the sake of the show or the experience. On the other Bachelor franchise shows, it is such a crapshoot to know who's actually there. And there are so many reasons you could be there. This whole thing about like, are you there for the right reasons is so absurd because, it's not just Instagram or TikTok fame. You could be there for the opportunity to go travel the world on somebody else's dime. You could be there because you're going to have these amazing experiences and make all these friends. Are those bad reasons? No, because out of 30 people, 29 of them, that's what they're going to get.
Right.
Like, if your chances of meeting your lifelong partner are 3%, then I hope you're going for some other reason.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to watch, obviously the conversations they have, and it's always the Bachelor or the Bachelorette saying, I want them to be here for the right reasons. It's like, are you there for the right reasons?
Right? Exactly.
Somebody's like, oh, you're the next Bachelor or the next Bachelorette. They too can just be caught up in this whole entire whirlwind. Now, anybody that watches the show, the success stories are what keep you coming back. They're like, oh no, they got married, they have children, blah, blah, blah. Why do you think we like to watch it? Like, what does it give the fan? Because apparently the first episode of the Golden Bachelor, which kind of surprised me, great ratings. Like, a lot of people wanted to see if Gary was really going to find love. And he's a great guy. He even kissed two women?
Yes.
One woman, two women?
Two women.
Two women, right?
I have to
I was like,
say, though,
oh.
I mean, the woman who he gave the first impression rose to, I think
liked her.
She is lovely. And they clearly have a connection. The way that they look each other,
Good eye
is
contact,
so real.
And she's a radio person, Kim, so we like her. We're going for the radio woman. Okay, so that's what we're doing.
The lady he kissed is a radio lady.
The one that he gave his first impression rose to. Did they kiss?
Oh, okay.
I think they
Yes,
kissed.
they
right?
did.
Yeah, they did
Yeah.
kiss. And then he
Right.
kissed another chick who didn't get it, and so she's. I don't know about kissing. On
But
the
that
first
was
date,
the
but-
thing. I mean, when we talk about like, does somebody have game or not? And he was like, what if I licked the frosting off this cupcake and then left some on my mouth? Would you clean it? I was like,
It was awkward and cringy. I'm like, no, do not do that, Grandpa. Please do not do that. He's like, I saw this on the interwebs, and then, like, it's so sweet that you're just constantly, you can't root for everybody. Do you think, Leah? And again, we are talking with Leah Carey. She's a sex and intimacy coach. She has a podcast called Good Girls Talk About Sex. Do you think it's going to get snarky on the Golden Bachelor?
I think it's hard to put that many people in a room who are all competing for the same person and not have some snark come in. But I
Right.
also think that a lot of the friction that we see in a regular season is drummed up through producer manipulation.
Right, and editing and things like that.
And editing, absolutely. And so I hope that there will be a lot less of it. I just don't think it's necessary. Maybe it's I have my doubts about whether it's necessary in a real season the way that we see it, but I don't think with this new show, because it is kind of bright and shiny, and they're selling it to us as this really sweet show. I really hope it stays that way.
Yeah, but I think just like a book, you need to have conflict, right? I mean, there has to be. Now, if they're going to make me cry every episode, I'll take that because I love crying at stuff. I love like emotional stories. Anything that makes me cry, I'm like, yes. So it could be that way. And I hope that he cries to let women go at the end of the first season. And I'm like, Gary, like, you have to do this so many more times. You cannot cry every single time. It's only going to get harder. But it's just really sweet. And he's really, really nice. And I hope that you're right. I hope it doesn't get too snarky. There needs to be some conflict to keep, I think, people watching, right?
Absolutely. But like you said, a lot of that conflict is going to come from Gary himself and his inner conflict. Like, we don't need a ton of outer conflict between the women. A lot of that can come from him.
Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit. So Kim and myself, we both have daughters who are 14 years old. Leah. Freshmen in high school. We're
Welcome
new,
to
never before.
the big time.
Yes. So homecoming for my daughter is coming up in 2 weeks. Kim's daughter has just gone to her homecoming.
Yeah.
Talking about pressures and dating and things like that. What do you think about this whole trend in recent years of the kind of big, huge displays to ask people to said dances? Now, my daughter has friends. They're all going together. Even people that are just friends are kind of asking in this kind of big sign type of way. I don't know how I really feel about it. I'm not poo-pooing it. I'm like, if that's how you want to be, like, I just wonder, are we setting our children up for a massive disappointment if one, they ask and the person says no, or two, they don't get to ask at all?
Yeah. I think it's such a pressure cooker for kids who are just not necessarily prepared for it yet. I mean, so I went to high school at a time when none of that happened. So,
Me too.
so
None
this
of it.
is all
You just ask
like,
somebody, hello,
yeah.
do you want to go to a dance? There you go.
Exactly. So I'm looking at this from the outside and thinking, if I had been part of that culture, I would have run back to bed and stayed under the covers for weeks. It seems like a lot of pressure to me. And I think that there can be some real, if what we want to do, and I hope that what we want to do is teach our teenagers about consent from before they start having sex, before they start maybe even dating. I think that these whole big promposals and whatever they call them for homecoming can really create some issues around consent, because what if, the most popular, the football captain, whatever, does this big elaborate thing for you and you're not really that interested, but you're kind of pressured into saying yes. Or there are just a lot of ways where I think that people of all genders, of all ages, can potentially get pressured into things that they don't want for fear of being either rejected or made fun of, or kicked out of the cool club, whatever. I think it's a lot.
Yeah. And I wonder, as you bring up consent, if there's a pressure to maybe date the person or go farther sexually with a person after the dance or whatever, because they had this huge kind of ask in front of everybody. And I can imagine doing a huge ask and the person saying no on the other hand. Now, did Julia's friends, did anyone get any gigantic kind of display?
Yeah.
This is a freshman. Now, I feel like freshman's a little young for all this. Well, that's just me.
Some people did, but the majority of them went in big groups. But there were some that got the big, the dramatic ask. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Who pays for the tickets if somebody asks somebody else to the dance? This is a question that's been mulling around because I don't know how much your HOCO tickets were, Kim, at your school. Ours are like $25, $30. Some of them are like $50 if they're at a location. Yeah. My friend's daughter, it was $50 per ticket. And I'm like, well, if the person asks and they go to the same school, they should get both tickets. If you're going to a different school, the person whose school it is should pay for the tickets. And then is it a boy, girl, gender thing? Like who should be paying? Do you go out to dinner and all those sorts of things? I mean, have times changed for the kids these days when it comes to stuff like that? That's my question.
So I'm not really up on how teenagers deal with finances. So let me just say that from the
parents are paying for it, basically. I know that. Yeah.
Right, that too. Yeah. But I do think that kids understand gender and gender dynamics in a very different way now than they did 20, 30 years ago when I was in school. And so that really, I think, probably puts a lot of new complications, but also opportunities into the mix. So there's not necessarily the expectation that the boy pays and the girl just, gets dressed up and looks fancy, and that maybe they have. Plus, we're also dealing, and I mean, you're in the Bay Area. I imagine you have lots of kids who are gender queer, who are, in
figuring it
various
out.
sexual orientation couples. So I mean, a lot of that stuff goes out the window when you're not talking about a cis heterosexual couple. And so, here's another area where conversation and consent can make a big, can make an entry point for young people, for parents to sit down with them and have a conversation about how are you going to deal with these questions around who pays and who takes on which responsibilities. And not only how are you going to decide who does it, but how are you going to communicate that with that date? These are excellent training grounds for helping kids to begin to talk about hard things, which then at some point, who knows when, they will eventually end up in a bedroom with somebody. And they're going to want to have those kinds of conversations there about like who's going to do what and how far are we comfortable going and all of that. So these can be great experiences if they're used for learning as opposed to just like immense stress. If it had been me, it would have been immense stress.
You mentioned, obviously talking about consent and what happens in the bedroom. And obviously this age is when kids are really figuring themselves out and what they like and who they are. Here is a question we were kind of having a little bit of a debate on. And I don't know, just kind of to get your opinion on it. So if a parent, is the parent of, let's say a boy or a girl, and they say that they like boys or girls or a member of the same sex, are slumber parties allowed? This is just a kind of a basic question that I always debate. And I'm like, if you, I would not allow my daughter, if she was heterosexual, to have boys spend the night. Right. Now, what if it's the opposite way? How do parents navigate this? Because honestly, we're just at the beginning of it. And I don't know how I'm going to tackle these issues.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with what your underlying boundaries are. So is your boundary for not having the heterosexual couple overnight because you don't want there to be the opportunity for pregnancy? Or is it that you don't want there to be the opportunity for sexual play? If your concern is about pregnancy only, then having two kids of the, with the same genital configurations is not an issue.
That's not an issue. True. Very good point. Very, very good point.
If you think that your kid is maybe too young, not mature enough, whatever, to deal with the pressures of sexual play, then it doesn't matter who the other person is or what the gender is.
Do you think that parents should allow sexual play under their roof? Like, that's a question. Like,
it's a big question.
I mean, I just don't feel comfortable.
Yeah. So here's and the frustrating thing for you talking with me is that my answer to all of these questions is going to be, it depends.
Of course, the kid and everything like that. Yeah.
So should you allow sexual play under your roof? It depends on what your tolerance and your risk, what your risk tolerance is.
Right.
If you think that your child is going to be having sexual play with somebody, regardless of what you do or what you say or what boundaries you put in place, because teenagers are crafty, then you might want to allow them to do it under your roof so that you at least know that they're in a safe place where you can kind of keep an eye on them and sort of be part of the conversation. If you think, I just like, that is not something that I want any part of, I'm completely uncomfortable with it, then no, don't do it. Like, you are not under any obligation to do that.
I don't, I think the latter, at least right now. I don't know.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. I don't know.
I was going back to the scenario where you have, I don't know, same sex slumber parties, right?
Yes.
Or sleepover, what have you. And my mind goes to trust. Like, if my daughter says, I'm having a girlfriend over to spend the night and we're just friends. Well, I mean, I would have assumed that they're just friends anyway, but she hasn't come out to me yet, or ever. But if she says we're just friends, then I'm going to believe that. Right. So then why wouldn't I allow that? If she says,
but what if she's already come out? What if that's my question?
And has she come out and has she said this is just a friend, or has she come out and said this is someone I'm interested in?
Right. What if it is someone that they're interested in? That's my question. Like if it is like this is my friend that I might be interested in,
then maybe I might not think it's appropriate.
Well, that's my question. That's what I'm saying. I'm like,
but if it's just a friend, and so you'd have to trust the kid to tell you the truth, right?
Door open. Leave that door open.
Yeah, totally. And what if your child has come out to you as gay?
Yeah.
So you have a daughter, it sounds like. I don't like to make any assumptions, especially about kids.
Both of us, daughters and sons, both of us.
Yeah. So if your daughter has come out to you as a lesbian, and she says, I want to have this boy for a sleepover.
I don't know how I feel about that either. I don't know. I just think, I'm like,
it's
confusing. Let's just end
How about just no sleepovers? The blanket rule.
We're just done. I'm like, and the thing is, Leah, it's not as if I am against my children. And this is really a weird thing as a mom to say, obviously exploring themselves in this way. They're growing up. They're going through puberty. I get it. I remember it wasn't that long ago, right? Going through it. But it's just, what is the best way to parent my child when I know the last thing they want to do is talk to me about it, right? Like, they're like, oh my God, I'm not talking to you about this. Yet we have to have the conversation. And I take, what I do, and I know Kim does, you take moments where something happens and it's a conversation starter, right? Like, okay, so that happened. So let's have a conversation about this. And I don't care how hard you roll your eyes at me, we're having the conversation. And it's hard. It's really hard.
It was the summer I turned pretty, that show. It was a constant like pause. Let's discuss.
Yes. My daughter can't stop rolling her eyes at me every time I have these conversations, but you got to keep having them, even if it's not covering everything all at once.
So one of my colleagues who works specifically with the teenage cohort in doing sex education, she talks a lot about most parents think that you have to sit down and have a 100-minute conversation with your teen. What would be better is to have 100 1-minute conversations.
Right. Yeah.
So that it's not like this big eye roll thing. It's just like a part of your normal everyday conversation. That's obviously easier if you're starting with them when they're little kids. And you can, people get all up in arms when we talk about teaching little kids about consent because they think it has something to do with sex. It doesn't.
No.
It has to do with like, this is your body and nobody gets to touch your body unless you want them to. And, nobody gets to come into your body bubble. And if you say no, people have to listen to that. And if they don't, you can run away, that kind of thing. And here, this is a really big one for anybody out there listening who has little kids, teaching them the correct names for their
body parts,
for their anatomical parts is really important. It has an actual effect on how vulnerable kids are to abuse. For this, I'm going to give just a moment of a trigger warning. I'm not a big trigger warning fan, but I feel like this is important. There are kids who don't know the correct names for their body parts. And so they'll go to a teacher or a mom and say, my tummy hurts, because that's the only word they know. And so they'll keep them home from school for a day because their quote unquote tummy hurts, not realizing that what the kid is trying to say is I'm being abused.
Right. Ugh.
So really important to teach like these little 1-minute conversations that happen throughout the course of childhood and teenagehood are really important. I just went off on a total tangent. I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Important information. I'm like,
exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. No, and it's important because, our kids are having these conversations with us in ways that we may not even be picking up on. Like they'll just say something and all of a sudden I'm like, did I miss an opportunity for a conversation right there? Or they mentioned something about school or their friends. And I feel like, I do want to be the person that my kids, both my daughter and my son, come to all the time. Myself, my husband, of course. But if I'm not, like Kim just wrote into the comments, maybe have your daughters talk to a good friend of yours instead of you. Maybe they'll feel more comfortable. I don't know why when I read that, it hurts my heart. It hurts because I want to be the person. Is that a wrong? I feel like it's a natural emotion, but I guess maybe does she have a point? Like finding somebody else?
I think that having aunts and uncles and close friends can be incredibly important for a lot of kids for whatever reason, because it's more comfortable for them, because maybe they feel safer, because they have something to talk about that they're not ready to talk about with a parent because they want to get the words right before they do. All of that stuff can really be effectively done with another adult who they trust. But also, and you're asking, is it wrong that I feel hurt? No, of course it's not wrong. It's a real feeling. But also think about the two feelings you have. I'm not really sure I'm comfortable having this conversation. And also I don't want them to have it with somebody else.
Yeah.
Like those are two very difficult things kind of bumping up against each other in the same space. And so that unfortunately is something that parents are going to have to do some work on. Like your kids need somebody to talk to. If it's not going to be you, fine. But
it needs to be somebody.
It needs to be somebody. And if you're having feelings about it being somebody other than you, that's maybe something for you to work on.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I want my kid to come to me for everything. And, and while I might feel uncomfortable, I do talk to my kids about everything. My daughter especially probably doesn't like it as much, but it's just one of those things where their influence radius is so huge now, between their friends. And I remember that age. I remember how important my friends were when I was 14 years old. I can give rat's butt about what my parents were doing. It was all about what my friends were doing. And then with dances, and the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you also is just all the influence, both in the media, in Hollywood, on TV, from school. Just seems so many pressures for kids. And then you add on to it just the fact that sexuality and gender and all these things, that not that it didn't exist when we were young, but it just wasn't a question. It wasn't on the table as much as it is right now, that I feel like I'm kind of flying blind a lot. I don't want to offend. I want to be inclusive, but it's a situation I never had to deal with when I was a kid.
Yeah. So Kim, you were saying before that you watch TV shows with your kid.
Right.
A great one, amazing, on Netflix is Sex Education. It's a show. I think,
love that show. I watched it. It just ended. The series just ended. It's
they just released their final season. I haven't watched it yet. I'm kind
It's
of
so
saving
good.
it because I don't want it to be over.
Yeah.
But they dive into all of these issues in a like, it is a completely teen-centric show. There are adults in the show. In fact, the main character's mother is a sex therapist.
Right.
But they deal with gender, they deal with sexuality, they deal with consent and coercion and all of that in a way that I think opens up amazing conversation opportunities for parents to watch with their kids.
It is definitely a graphic show, though. I will say this.
Really?
I'm prefacing that, like, you're gonna see, there's body parts, there's language, there's all sorts of things. So, take that and apply it to the kids of your age, right?
Yes, and they're already seeing it.
Yes, you're absolutely correct.
They're not seeing something that they've never seen before.
Right.
A lot of kids, I mean, by 14, I'm sorry to say this, but probably both of your kids have seen porn either in school or on
somebody
the school
has shown
bus.
your daughter something on their phone.
God, I hate to think that.
I know. And that is informing their idea of what sex is and what sex is supposed to look like and how they're supposed to behave and what their body is supposed to look like. Now, I am not somebody who is here to vilify all porn. Exactly. If they have a phone, they have seen it. So I don't vilify porn across the board, but as an opportunity for sex education, porn is the worst because it's not sex, it's performance.
Yes.
And so if your kids are looking at that without any other input about what sex is, they're getting a really skewed version of what sex is. And it is a version that I don't think you would want them to play out in the bedroom.
Do you think that porn, and it's just probably different, I'm going to probably answer my own question, but do you think that porn has more of a negative impact on boys or girls? Because, I could see, the women in pornography, they're gorgeous. They have, large breasts, or their body looks a certain way. They have no hair anywhere, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. But then also boys may think, oh, all I have to do is knock on the door. I'm supposed to get sex from this person, or it happens so quickly after I say hello or whatever. And it really is in no way, shape, or form reality.
It's bad for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, at least in terms of like using it as sex education or any type of, I am supposed to model my sex life on this. It's bad for everybody, because you're right. There's only one body type that's featured. There's not only that one body, but she almost always, if we're talking about cis females, she almost always makes the same noises. And she makes the same facial expressions, and she asks for the same things in the same
she always
tone
likes
of voice.
it. Everything
She
feels
always
great.
likes it.
Right.
She never needs foreplay,
No.
which means that she is not self-lubricated at all.
Oh, geez.
So, like,
Yeah.
we're telling our girls that this is how you're supposed to look and this is how you're supposed to act. And so I have done some interviews with younger women on my podcast who talk about, well, this is what it looks like on porn, so I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. When no, porn is a performance. They are not feeling pleasure, they are acting pleasure. Which is totally different. You cannot feel pleasure and act pleasure at the same time. So if you're thinking about how you look and how you sound and how you're moving and how you're groaning, you're not actually
Feeling
the
it.
sexual
Right.
experience.
Yeah.
And then for our boys, we are teaching them, girls don't, or women, bodied people. I'm sorry, it gets so complicated.
I
when you try to be
know.
inclusive all the time.
Inclusive. I get it.
But people with vaginas don't need foreplay because they're just ready to go all the time, which is just not true. That is not how the female turn on cycle works. And a lot of porn these days involves choking to the degree that our teenagers think that choking or breath play is just in the course of quote unquote normal sexual play. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't ever do it, but it is one of the most dangerous sexual acts there is. And you need to have some real serious consent conversations with someone before you do that. But you don't see consent conversations in porn. And so boys just reach down and start grabbing at the throat, not really knowing what they're doing, not really having conversations. That is really not safe.
I mean, I don't even like to think about like those sorts of things with my children this age. And I know that if they have a phone in their hand, they probably know exactly what you're talking about. And that's what blows my mind.
Yeah.
It really, really blows my mind. And I think that that's why I want to keep having these conversations. And I really appreciate you coming on the show and having this conversation. Even though I'll be honest, it does make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I could talk about other people's kids till I'm blue in the freaking face. I start putting my own kid in there, like, I don't know about that. I just don't think so.
I don't know. I don't think my daughter's seen porn. I don't know. But I mean, clearly. Yeah.
Now, I'm not like him. I'm not saying that I know that my kids have, but I know my kids have. Like, they have a phone. They have a computer. They have friends that have phones.
Exactly.
Like,
even if they haven't gone looking for it themselves, their friends have shown it.
Exactly. So, and I don't, and again, even if I was confronted with the reality of my kid looking at something like that, the conversation wouldn't be like, oh my God, how could you? It would be like, okay, just what you were talking about, Leah. Like, this isn't real life. Yeah. This is porn. There's a difference between and having the conversation and, spurring the conversation about reality there. And so
what's interesting though is I know we're wrapping it up, but I was just reading this whole article about AI girlfriends and how more men are actually going for this. Like, more people are not having relationships and they're having these fake online things.
Oh, how
And
sad is
so,
that?
and that more men are really lonely. And so they're, for whatever reason, they're turning to these, bots or whatever, that this is going to be the way it
That's
is. And then
sad.
eventually there's going to be a physical component to that. So it's not just an emotional outlet online, but there's going to be like a robot lady
Wow.
where you get your physical needs met. And so then the whole human relationship turns into this different thing, and it becomes more difficult to
Wasn't this a movie? I feel like there was a movie like
Right.
right
Well,
of a
and
guy that
that-
was dating an AI or something.
AI girlfriend, her whole point is to give you the experience you want.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
how great!
Right?
How great!
Without
for
It's
them,
not a
right?
human relationship. It's not about learning how to resolve conflicts or work together toward a goal or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that really disturbs me about the first part of that, before you bring in the like physical component, is that we as humans have a basic physical touch need. Every one of us has a different physical touch need. Some people have a very low one. Some people, like me, have a very high one. I joke with my partner that I'm a golden retriever. If we're in the same room together, I want to be touching you.
Right.
Yeah.
But so every person has sort of like the minimum amount of touch that they need in order to keep your brain healthy. Because when you experience skin to skin touch, it actually produces positive chemicals in your brain that help to keep your various brain pathways kind of cleared and tuned up. And we see this, like if somebody is in forced isolation for a long time, one of the things that can happen is that they start kind of losing their mind. And one of the reasons is because they're not getting any physical touch.
Oh.
So it's really concerning to me when I hear about people who are not getting just the basic amount of touch they need in order to keep their brains in working order. I actually have a theory. I have not looked up any research on this, so I can't say it with any authority, but I have a theory that this is what the incel movement is about. It's men who have not found success in, getting a human relationship, and it has altered their brain to the degree that they become violent and think that everybody like owes them something. This is I don't know if this is going to be a controversial take for you or not, but this is part of the reason why I think that sex workers are absolutely crucial. Because if somebody can't develop a relationship on their own, they can at least get the touch that they need somewhere.
Yeah.
So
It's an interesting take on it that I hadn't considered.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was a controversial experiment with actual babies, where one baby was raised for a while and they didn't touch it. They fed the baby, but they wouldn't give it any sort of love.
No love, nurturing.
No
yeah.
love. Yeah. Something like that. And it kind of proved like this, you need it as a human being. That is an interesting take regarding sex workers. I have no problem if somebody in a safe, non-exploitive way was doing that. I know that there's obviously controversy surrounding it, but that's an interesting take of, if I can't get touch from anybody, can I at least pay for somebody to love me? And that's so sad, but it's true. It's a need.
Well, sex work is a whole other conversation. Like we could do a whole hour just on that.
Exactly.
But yeah, I that is absolutely true. With babies who don't get the amount of touch that they need, they go into a state called failure to thrive.
Yeah.
Where they're getting their basic, food and
sustenance.
Needs met, but they're not thriving. They stop growing. You remember stories back from, I think it was in Romania, where there were all those orphanages where they just didn't have enough workers, and the babies stopped crying because they learned that nobody was coming. I know, it's heartbreaking. And even though we get older and we have more social skills potentially, our brains are still the same. Like our brains still have the same basic needs that we did when we were babies.
Yeah, I can't imagine living my life without any sort of love like that, and any sort of touch. Leah Carey, I loved having you on the show. We would love for you to come back,
Anytime.
You guys need a 5-minute weekly Bachelor
There you go.
discussion.
I know. We might just have to do that. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, check out Leah's podcast as well. It's called Good Girls Talk About Sex, or goodgirlstalk.com. Leah Carey, we'll have you right back on the show. We really appreciate you. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Awesome.
Nice to meet
Thank
you.
you. We'll talk to you again soon.
day.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I thought that was fun, right? I mean,
she's cool.
She's awesome. And so, we'll definitely have these conversations. I like to do different things, and talk about things that impact everybody. And then
we scratched the surface with her. There's so much more we could have talked about.
That went way longer than I thought it was going to go. So that was awesome. I'm really, really, really happy. But yeah, there's a lot of things, Kim, not to just get too that we're going to deal with now that we have teenage daughters and our sons are following very closely behind them. And I was talking to one of my friends. I know I'm going to mess up. I think that's the thing. I know I'm going to mess up. I'll be tested in a moment and maybe I'm not saying the right thing, or I think I'm saying the right thing and they're acting like I'm saying the wrong thing.
Right.
I don't know what I don't know. And that's why I want to bring people like Leah and others on the show, because, we're kind of flying blind. The world is not the same when we were growing up, Kim. It just isn't.
No, it's true. It's scary. And I want there to be, Julia's only 14. So I want her to have this, I don't want to force everything on her so fast. So,
but don't you think it's already being forced
I
on
know.
her?
I maintain the illusion that there's some naivete there, that there's some still innocence there.
You could be right.
There.
Maybe she hasn't. I'll say this.
But should I encourage that? Or should I get her ready for the, for what's going?
Well, here's my thing. This is what I always tell myself. It's either going to come from me or it's going to come from their friends. And who's more of an expert? And I'm using expert in a kind of a broad sense of I've been alive, right? I'm not, looking at porn to get sex tips or anything like that, right? So there's that aspect. But the whole idea of having other people to talk to really resonated with me as well, because my daughter, even though we're extremely close, I remember being her age. I remember what I told my parents and what I didn't tell my parents. And it wasn't because they were bad parents. And it wasn't that they didn't create an environment in which I felt comfortable talking. It's just, I didn't want to. I didn't want to talk to them. I wanted to talk to my friends, and that's who I went to. And that's who a lot of kids nowadays go to, whether they're getting good advice or not. That's up in the air. I don't know.
This is TMI, but the other day Julia came to me and said, I don't understand where my pee comes from. I was like, okay.
Look.
We had to have so we had an anatomy lesson at the kitchen table with the diagram and everything. I'm like, here's where this is. Here's where that is. Here's where this is. And way down here, there's got another one.
Son too. Please explain it to your son, because how many grown ass men think that babies come out the pee hole, right?
I'm glad she asked.
Yes.
I'm glad we got that taken care of, right? Yeah.
I love your daughter. She's like, I just make it make sense, Mom. Make it make sense.
Yeah. It's like, I don't understand. Well, okay. Let's talk about all the
Let's
different
talk
holes.
but that's awesome that she came to you and just bluntly said it, right? It's just like, because, and this is the thing, I talk about in front of my son, another TMI. I talk about everything that's going on, woman wise, in front of my son.
Yes,
why?
Absolutely.
Because I don't want my son to grow up thinking that things are gross that happen naturally to women, right? It's like, no, this is not gross. If I'm having cramps and I'm laying on the couch and I'm like, my son's like, what's wrong? I say, I have cramps because I'm on my period. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, Mom. Can I get you tea? I'm raising my son that way, where we don't hide things, we're not, doing any of that kind of nonsense. If you grow up and you're either in a heteronormative relationship or whatever, or you're friends with women, have some tampons or pads under your sink, help a lady out sometimes. You never know what can happen. I want to raise advocates and I want to raise feminists.
Lori says,
the word.
Glad she asked, though. They cover this in 5th and 7th grade sex ed. Yes, except for that happened to her. Those years were COVID years for her. And so things got missed, I think. They did some
Obviously.
sex ed, but they guess they didn't, or she wasn't paying attention that day. Something happened. But we are really open. Like, I do talk about things, and we have talked about consent and what happens and the moments of passion and all these things. So just have to go back to basic anatomy. It's like, oh gosh, we really missed something here. Let's rewind. Yeah.
Fantastic writes in, I got the sex talk at 10 years old and never heard any more from my parents about it after that. I literally thought that the penis and vagina would magically connect when kissing.
It's a mystical event.
I love that you shared that story, Fantastic. Yeah. That is the best. Yeah, I mean, but that is the innocence of being 10 years old. And they're like, when a man and a woman love each other very much and they kiss, they just stand really close together. It's this innocent way of thinking about it. Yeah. My daughter, when I had, I sex ed and I took her to like this thing at Stanford and everything. You would think that the penis was a knife, and she's like, "That is not going in me." Like she has that sort of attitude, like, "Nope," and she's like, "No, I'm not having babies. That's not happening to me." Yeah. Like I get it; it's mind blowing for kids, and so what I try to tell my kids, and I know we're ending the show right now. I tell my kids, if you feel uncomfortable talking about it, you're too young to be doing it. Right? Like you should not be having sex if you cannot have a mature conversation about sex, what you want from sex, the consequences of sex, and all sorts of things. So if you're uncomfortable, that's a sign that maybe I'm a little too young to be doing it. Now, does that stop kids? No, I'm not saying that at all. Just because they might feel uncomfortable talking about it with their parents doesn't mean the kids are not going to be having sex. But it's conversations we're just going to continue to have to have. And no matter how uncomfortable we may be, Kim McCallister.
Yeah, we got to do it.
There you go.
Gonna happen. Right. So before we go, let me just tell you that I do have a news story that I think
we never got to headlines. I'm sorry.
I just want to let you know that. Do you know Russ Francis? He was a former Pro Bowl tight end, and he was with the 49ers. He won a Super Bowl in 1984. He was with the 49ers when they won the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
He died in a plane crash at the age of 70 yesterday in Lake Placid, New York. So it's his name again is Russ Francis. He was a former Pro Bowl tight end, and he has passed away at the age of 70.
Was it like a single Cessna? Like I'm assuming it was a small plane crash.
He was with a former commander of the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds, Francis and Richard McSpadden. Is the man's name that he was with. They rolled hard to the left after taking off from Lake Placid and then crashed. So
what a way to go. Wow.
I don't know what kind of plane they were in at the time. But,
well, that's a tragedy. Oh, how awful.
Yeah.
Well, rest in peace. I mean, I didn't know him as a player. I don't know the name. It doesn't ring a bell, but that's really, really sad. Okay. On that note, sorry.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing the show down, Kim. No problem.
Remember Brett used to do that to Mark all the time. That's why they had the Brett obituaries.
Obituaries, yeah.
Like, hold on. Somebody died. I'm sorry. That's really awful. I'm not making light of the death, but I'm just laughing that Kim did that. And now I'm ending the show. But don't leave YouTube because Kim is filling in for Mark Thompson and then, of course, does the after party live. Yeah. I will be back on Friday for a Friday food. I will be in San Francisco for the next 3 days. I apologize, but it's a second job. Got to do it. Yeah. I do want to give some thank yous, though, really, really quickly. Mimi came in with a $20 super chat donation. Thanks you very Mimi. Much. Maud, I love you. $25. We were talking about the lottery. We don't have billions, but here's some change. I adore you. And of course, Harry, thank you for tuning in
Harry.
Wherever you're working today, my friend. Yeah. And I will let you know when the buttons arrive. Yeah. Please buy your raffle tickets for our 1-year anniversary coming up. PayPal.com. Send the money to the Nikki Medoro Show at gmail.com. They're $20 a piece, and it helps us support the show. Of course, become a Patreon member is the number one way, an official Medorable. Go to thenikkimedoroshow.com and sign up there. All right. Love you all. Stay right here for Kim, and I'll talk to you on Friday. Bye-bye.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. Miss Brown, like a beautiful blossom. You're all so the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.